Have you ever had those days where you just don't feel like going all out? Maybe even smaller than that. Now that's more the size I'm talking about. So let's talk about Feiyu's new gimbal, the G6 Max. So the G6 Max actually releases today, but luckily for me, Feiyu sent it to me a while ago to test out. And although I love testing out new gimbals, I've never actually been interested in these smaller ones that are meant for phones and smaller cameras, just because I tend to use a heavier setup. However, just like my intro suggested, sometimes you want something that's just quick and easy to shoot with, and for a lot of people out there who are more into casual filmmaking, the Feiyu G6 Max may be a better option for them compared with a larger and more expensive gimbal. The G6 Max comes in at a weight of 665 grams, which is just under 1.5 pounds. And just for comparison, here's the G6 Max next to the Weebill S, which weighs 926 grams without the batteries and tripod. Although the G6 Max is actually 2 grams heavier than its predecessor, the G6 Plus, its payload is 1 kilogram compared with the previous 800 gram payload. Moving on to the design. The G6 Max has included my favorite feature of current gimbals, which are the lock switches on each axis. These make storing and setting up the gimbal worlds easier. The Max also has these circular pieces which you tighten and untighten to adjust for balance. Although a clever design that keeps the gimbal more compact, I found it could be difficult to tighten at times without accidentally messing up your adjustments. Moving down the gimbal, you have an OLED screen, a joystick, and a few other buttons along with the multifunctional wheel that lets you tilt different axes and control your camera's settings. On the other side, you have the power button, the camera mode button, and a Type-C port for charging, and on the front is the trigger used to reset and change into selfie mode. Overall, the design is good, but nothing too different from other similar gimbals out there. The screen was easy to read and the buttons were easy to use, and to me, that's all I really cared about. The gimbal can also be controlled through Bluetooth via the Feiyu app. Through the app, you can control the gimbal using the virtual joystick and also have access to a variety of settings that you can adjust. The most important one, in my opinion, was the motor strength setting. During testing, the gimbal would vibrate each time I changed cameras, and I found that calibrating the motor strength for each camera fixed this issue. One thing that I wish that they included would have been the ability to fine-tune the sensitivity of the gimbal, just so you could match the speed of your shots to whatever style that you're going for. So moving on, just some additional information about the gimbal. It does have cable control if you were wondering. It does come with some cables so that you could use those various cameras to control with the gimbal. The gimbal's battery is stated to be around 8 to 9 hours, and while I was out testing, I was shooting for about 4 to 5 hours and it was around 50%, so that sounds about right. In addition to that, Feiyu did tell me that they're going to be releasing an accessory that will allow for wireless sound recording, and although I'm not too sure about the details, once more comes out about it, I'll definitely let you guys know. Okay, so with all of the technical stuff out of the way, it's time to get down to the important question of how well does the gimbal perform in the real world. So I tested the G6 Max with 4 cameras: the iPhone X, the Canon G7X Mark II, the A6000 with the crop 35mm lens, and the Sony A7iii with the full frame 35mm lens. Starting with the iPhone. Phone cameras have only been getting better, and I'm sure many of you have seen those dope cinematic videos done with only iPhones. So if you're asking yourself if you should get a gimbal for your iPhone, my answer is, it depends. The iPhone stabilization is solid on its own, but here's a comparison of some gimbal versus some handheld shots. As you can tell, the gimbal shots are just that much smoother. So if you want those clean cinematic moving shots, definitely look into a gimbal like the G6 Max. Next, we have the Canon G7X Mark II, which is a very popular camera for vloggers. Balancing the camera was easy and the motors didn't struggle at all with it. So for any vloggers or just any point and shoot users out there, the G6 Max wouldn't be a bad option. Next, we have the A6000 with the 35mm crop lens. Although I was able to balance the camera without an issue, it was a pretty tight fit and definitely getting close to the limits of the gimbal. Despite this, the G6 Max also handled the A6000 easily and produced pretty smooth footage. And last of all, we have the A7iii with the 35mm full frame lens. I had my doubts that the gimbal would be able to handle this setup, but I thought, what the hell? In order to balance the setup, I had to remove the eyepiece from the camera, but after that, it actually balanced just fine. And even more to my surprise, with the gimbal's motor set to full strength, it was able to carry the A7iii with no discernible problems. One test that I like to do is to use the POV or all follow mode and tilt the camera far to each side, just because gimbals tend to have trouble handling that type of strain. Surprisingly, the G6 Max didn't spaz out despite having that concentrated weight to one side, and I was able to get my Brandon Lee on even with my A7iii. The last test I did was just to shoot a shot comparison between the G6 Max and the Weebill S using the A7iii. No surprise to anyone, the Weebill S produced a much smoother shot. However, the G6 Max didn't do too shabby itself. So in conclusion, although I still personally prefer a larger, stronger setup for myself, I can see the Feiyu G6 Max being great for anyone who's looking for a quick and easy gimbal to use that works. I can see this gimbal being great for vlogging, casual shooting, or just anyone who's getting into videography and wants that versatility to start branching out later on. And with that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed the review, and if you have any questions, just comment down below and I'll try to get back as fast as I can. And as always, if you guys like the video, make sure to like and subscribe. Peace.